You are live, Madam Chair. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Sierra. Morning, Board of Commissioners, and to the citizens of Douglas County. Today is Monday, November 29th, 2021, and welcome to our 10 o'clock virtual Board of Commissioners work session. I will call this meeting to order, and I'll start off with roll call. District 1 Commissioner Henry Mitchell III. District 2 and Vice Chairman Kelly Robinson. Commissioner Robinson, I see you, but I don't think you can hear me, Rick.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. This is Wendy. Commissioner Robinson is having trouble with his audio. He can't seem to hear it, so we're working on that. Okay,
thank you. I see him. Okay. Commissioner Guider?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, and then Chairman here, I'm present as well. Board of Commissioners, we do have a quorum this morning. Our clerk will start off with public comment. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment this morning, clerk?
Good morning, Chairman. No, we did not have anyone sign in this morning. I don't see anyone on the list that has joined the call, but I will ask if there is any public that would like to speak this morning.
Okay.
Being none, Chairman, let's turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Clerk Watson. Board of Commissioners, and also to the citizens of Douglas County, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and welcome back. And I will, I believe Commissioner Robinson does not have any sound yet, so I'll just work through some of the things like the approval of the minutes, things that are really, probably, it wouldn't matter if you didn't hear.
Madam Chair?
There you are.
I'm here. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, good. I feel better now. Didn't know if you could hear or not. Sure. All right, so Board of Commissioners, we do have this morning a presentation, but before we start our meeting, I would ask if we could keep our comments to 5 minutes and our rebuttal to 3. And certainly we know civility is part of our DNA. So we won't go any further. I'll start off. We have the presentation this morning, our 2022 proposed budget. Rosalind Miller, you have the floor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I am ready. Rick?
Yes, hold on one second.
Not a problem.
Rosalind will be getting things ready for you. Wanted to make sure I had the updated one.
It should be the first one.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, the Patsy was updated.
Right, and that will come later.
Gotcha. Okay, you should see the screen now.
I do, and thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, ma'am.
So this morning, I'm presenting the 2022 proposed budget. You can go to the next slide. And this just gives some of the items that we will go over today. Next slide, please. Next slide. Well, one thing, your 2022 budget that is proposed this morning is in your financial policy guidelines. It's within your guidelines. And you established financial policies I believe in 2020, and one of the guidelines is that your proposed revenue must be less than or equal to your previous estimated revenue. So for your 2022 budget, we're estimating 2021 revenues as 104 million dollars, and so therefore your 2022 budget revenues will be the same, and that's what's in the proposal. Next slide, please. So for your recurring expenditure, it states in your guidelines, financial policy guidelines, that your proposed budget recurring expenses to be less than or equal to the 2022 proposed revenue, recurring revenue. And as it states, the proposed budget for 2022, the expenditures come in under your estimated revenues. So your expenditures as proposed is 103.5 million, and the revenue is 104.6 million. Next slide, please. Also, your financial policy, it states that your fund balance the minimum should be 12% of your expenditures. And as you see, for your 2022 unrestricted fund balance, we're estimating it would be 25% of your expenditures. Again, this is estimated. As you know, we will not know the final numbers until April of 2022, but we're estimating that your unassigned fund balance, meaning it's not restricted, it can go towards operation of your general fund. So we're stating that after removing obligations, that your unrestricted fund balance will be $29 million, which will be 28% of your expenditures. And then also in policy, you can reserve for capital 25%, which if you reserve for capital, it would be 3.3 million. So we're gonna subtract that from your unassigned fund balance of 29 million, and that's how we get your estimated unrestricted fund balance at 25.7 million, which is 25% of your expenditures. And again, you are in line with your financial policy because it states that your fund balance minimum should be 12% of expenditures. Next slide, please. Now we'll go over general fund overview. Next slide, please. Your general fund recurring revenue, as mentioned, is stated at $104.6 million dollars, and this is the breakout. As you can see, the majority of the revenue received to run the county government is your property taxes at 56%, and then next is your loss at 17%. And in this budget, the revenue assumption, we're stating that it's the same for as of 2021 per the policy. We're using a 93% collection rate, and also there's no growth and no reassessment growth. That's our assumptions for the 104.6 million. Next slide, please. So where the money goes, your general fund recurring expenditures, as mentioned, is stated at 103.5 million. And as you can see, your 2022 proposed budget is also priority of public safety. Public safety gets 30%, 36% of that 103.5 million. And then you have general government at 21%, and then you have judicial at 17%. Some of the assumptions for your expenditures, this is an election year, so it will be in the election department, you'll see expenditures have increased because it is an election year. Also for public works, there's beautification, it's 6 mowing cycles. And also an increase is you have a whole year for operations for the new senior center and the new recreation center. However, there's no additions to core, and meaning no capital or additional staff. Next slide, please. General fund recurring expenditures. This is by category, so it's still the 103.5, but just states where the money goes in category. And the biggest portion, of course, is your human capital, which is your salaries and benefits, and it's 59% of the 103.5 million. And then the next is operation of the government, which is 35%. Next slide, please. The next is your general fund revenue, and it's historic. It shows you, actual back to 2019 and how we would end 2021. Also on this slide, we have added non-recurring revenue. So non-recurring revenue is one-time revenue. It's not revenue that you'll receive all the time. It's like grants. And for instance, for your 2022 proposed budget, we have listed ARPA, and it's $3.8 million. And as you will see on the slides after, the detail of it is regular employees will receive 5%. Public safety will receive 10% increase in salaries. We just are showing the first year of the 3.8. The first year and the second year expenditures has revenue to match, which is ARPA. That's what you see the transfer in for the 3.8. So with the non-recurring revenue and non-recurring expenditures, you would add the 3.8. Next slide, please. The review of general fund budget. Next slide. And this slide just goes into detail, and it details out each department. Next slide. And the totals by category. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Rosalind, this is Commissioner Robinson. Can you state what the totals are just for the general public? Each slide as you slip through it is moving fast. Just for the record, please. Thank you.
No, probably not all. If we can go back to that slide. So I will go and identify that category, and this is general fund, and the first category is the general government, and it's 28,355,890. That's the proposed total for 2022. Next slide, please. Next slide is your judicial category, and the proposed budget for judicial is $17,813,288. Next slide, please. The next you have your public safety, and the proposed total is $36,941,990. And then you have your public works, which is $7,950,473. Next slide, please. Your next is your health and welfare. The total for your 2022 proposed budget for health and welfare is $2,734,152. The next is your parks and recreation. The total for the proposed 2022 budget is $6,814,476. Next slide, please. The next is planning and community development. It's $2,966,815. And you see for general fund, the total of your 2022 proposed budget, the total for expenditures is $103,577,084. And if you subtract your revenue from your expenditures, you see that you have revenue is over your expenditures by $1,054,444. And as stated before, the beginning fund balance was 28 million, and if we're proposing, and again, this is just an estimate, that we will add $1,054,444 to fund balance. That will make your unassigned fund balance at 29 million, which is 28% of your expenditure. Next slide, please. The next slide is just a summary of fund balance. As I mentioned, this shows that your true estimated total fund balance, the beginning, how you ended last year, and now the beginning of your 2021 fund balance is $36.3 million. And estimating ending fund balance would be $40,623,000. And again, when you subtract your obligation from that 40 million, meaning that you have to restrict money because there's obligations, outstanding POs, your unassigned fund balance would be 28 million as we're estimating for 2021. And then when you add the 1 million, that's how we're estimating for your 2022 budget, that your unassigned will be $20 million. And again, it's 28% of your expenditures. And as a visual, and again, it's not, you do have revenue for this year to fund the increases of regular class at 5%, and public safety at 10%, which is $3.8 million. And we're just showing that after the 2 years, that this amount would have to come out of fund balance or have another revenue source. So let's say it's 2 years and your fund balances remain the same. We're adding the expenditures. Your expenditures would be 107.4 million instead of the 103, and your fund balance would be at 23% of your expenditures. And that is just to show a picture if all things are remaining in 2 years. Next slide, please. And the next is actually all of the requests that we received from all the departments, and we labeled it proposed additions to core, and it's wage adjustments, additional personnel, vehicles, equipment, building improvement, we have technology and other. And again, these items are not in the $103 million proposed budget. We have labeled and presented all the additions. Next slide, please. Next slide. The next is also from your additional funds, other funds. They've also requested items, again, going from wages, technology, and building and improvement. And the total from all departments for Douglas County, the total request is $30.8 million. And again, these items are not included in your 2022 proposed budget. Next slide, please. Next is a review of other funds. Next slide. We have an unincorporated area special district fund. We're proposing, and within this fund is where your beer, wine, franchise tax, your insurance premiums are restricted to this fund. It's not a part of general fund. This is a total separate fund. And we're proposing that the 2022 revenue would be, we will receive 11.3 million. Next slide, please. This is the expenditures. We're estimating the total expenditures from this fund would be 9.4 million. And 11.3 minus the 9.4, we anticipate addition to the fund balance, and it would be 1.9. Currently, your beginning fund balance is estimated to be 3.8, and if you add the excess of revenue of the 1.9, you'll get a total fund balance of $5.8 million, which is 62% of expenditures. And out of this fund, you have your code enforcement, permits and inspections, and your planning and zoning. Next slide, please. This is another total separate fund. It's not part of general fund. It's your fire protection services and EMS. We're anticipating revenue to be $17 million and receiving revenue, ambulance fees, and also money from the general fund and the earnings fund. The expenditures are restricted to fire protection and services and EMS, and we're anticipating a balanced budget. The beginning fund balance was $937,248. We're estimating that's how you would end in 2021, and we're estimating again a balanced budget. So your ending balance would be the same, and it would be 5% of your expenditures. Next slide, please. The animal control service fund, again, this fund is totally separate from all funds. We're estimating total revenue at $1.4 million. Expenditures will be restricted to animal control only, and we're anticipating animal control's proposed 2022 budget will be 1.5 million, and revenue is less than your expenditures. So therefore, we're anticipating going into fund balance by $55,000, which will reduce your fund balance by that amount. And we're anticipating Animal Control's 2022 fund balance would end at $66,000, which is 4% of budget of your expenditures. Next slide, please. Your special revenue funds. These funds are also restricted. They're restricted to the district attorney, drug abuse treatment and education. Majority of the funds come from fines and forfeitures. You got your hotel motel tax. The total of the special revenue for your proposed budget is $9.4 million. And again, these revenues are restricted for these funds only. Next slide, please. And next is your capital project fund, which is one of your biggest capital projects fund, and that's your SPLOST, your 2016 SPLOST. And also, and again, of course, we receive the remit each month, revenue each month to cover the expenditure. So the proposed budget for your 2022 is estimated for expenditures on 16.9 million. And debt service, you have to pay debt service for your 2016 slot, which would be the last payment in 2022, and that's 4.1 million. And then you have your solid waste enterprise fund at 2.8 million, and your internal service fund, which is your health and health insurance, and also your workers' comp. And we're totaling that this fund would be 16.9 million. Next slide, please. Our next, tomorrow would be the public hearing. November the 30th would be the public hearing. And December 14th is the adoption of the budget. So you have until December 14th make any changes, and January 1st would be the beginning of your 2022 budget proposed, and again, we're on a calendar year. That's all I have. If there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Interim Finance Director Rosalind. Thank you so much. Great presentation, very thorough. Board of Commissioners, do we have any questions for? Okay, Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll be brief because again, I don't want to get ahead of the public hearings, because we definitely want to hear what they have regarding the proposed 22 budget tomorrow. A couple of topics I do want to just frame for my own edification. We had a 2.0 budget retreat. I'm going to go in reverse. And there was roughly about $1 million. I'm trying to align that conversation with what I just heard. You mentioned that the employees, the staff, had roughly $33 million worth of asks. Which obviously, I won't call it a wish list, but it's just what the needs are. We only got $1. Got it, no problem. We talked about the $1 million, and me and my peers had conversations of at least framing some of the things that are going to be, that we intend to sponsor in by finding 2 other people to align with us to accomplish that. Where is that at? Is that involved in here, or?
Yes, it is. Rick, could you bring up I believe it's labeled presentation 1.
Yes, ma'am. I'll work on that.
and I'm not going to use this time. I mean, this is not the time to sort of do the horse trading per se, but I just needed to acknowledge that. Right? I think that was important for me and as well as our peers, in that the staff hear us, that we went through that whole day exercise, and I just wanted to make sure that it was codified somewhere. So,
And thank you, Commissioner. I will bring that up. Not a problem.
so while you're doing that, I'll just frame this. So what I heard was 104 versus 103. Right? What I heard was what, roughly like 65% of our budget is salary and 30% is operating general government beyond salary,
Yes,
which means that's 95%, which means that on any given year we're working with a nickel. Back to the nickel conversation. And while I hear it's important that we set the public's expectations off the narrative about a spend, you get much work with it. It's already tight. Yes, you can smooth some things out, but you're only working within a nickel. And even within that nickel, there's certain things that have already been somewhat, let's say, assigned per se, but even we as board commissioners, we're working with a penny, which is where you're going with this slide I'm talking about. So while as district commissioners, we know that this is a presentation from the obviously the executive administration to us. It's like from executive to Congress. Like, here's our budget, and we need you guys to adopt it. We know our role, but just for the sake of the conversation. And we, the four of us, along with Madam Chair, all we really are shaping are the edges of something that's already set in motion. It's a penny. It's 1%. Right? So, but it still matters. Each district vote matters, and they get a chance to shape an edge of this square to smooth it on out. But there's not a lot that we work. Recognize we got $33 million of, and I'm sure that staff and the leadership there went through with each of the, whether it was, I'm assuming that 33 million includes both constitutional as well as normal department heads. Is that true, Rosalind? That 33 million?
yes, that is correct.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So I'm framing this. So now let's come back to the 1%. I'll buy you some time. So do you have that up in front of us now?
I do, sir.
All right. So can you explain how that also fits into the conversation? Because again, our citizens will be looking to us, okay, in addition to what the core, I'm going to use you guys' word, the core base budget, they grew a little bit. You have a policy that you're not going to, set a budget that's, beyond reasonable expectation. And so, what are we standing for? What are we advocating for? We have to take positions respectfully. So, in that list, do you have it in front of? How much is that list? And I'll be ready to yield one more time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have the but the total is 3 million. So from the 30 million, these are the items that made this list, the priority list. Would you like for me to go over them?
No. I'm just
So
making a
it's
point.
So it's 3 million, and we broke it out as you recall in the presentation that you had 3.3 million for capital.
Yep.
So we have capital items would be we have transportation, it's set aside for the TIP project. Then you have general funds. Out of this list, there's 1.1 million from general funds. So what that means is that 1.1 million would be added to your proposed 103 million. And you had 1,054,000 revenue over expenditure. So you will be there will be a difference.
Right. So the board recognizes, and again, we talked about this, just for folks, we have to still reconcile what that list is. It wasn't automatically put into the budget I think respectfully, we all have to agree that these items that we think are the 1%, that we're all on the same page. So I just wanted to bring up that point. I'm keep moving. We got a long day. All right, so thank you for that. My second point is that as I look at this budget, Madam Chair, this is an interesting point that go back to health and welfare. I think you said we're spending about $2 million on a health and welfare out of a $103 million budget. That's what, like 1.5%. That's our DFAC. That's our senior. Look at DFAC. So it's what is it? It's DFAC. It's senior services. It's all those things that we think are vitally important, but we're only spending less than what? 2% of our entire budget. I know at one time we sort of grew that over time, including CSD. We grew that over time to get up to around 4 or 5%. It looks like it's not keeping up. It's not keeping up. So I just wanted to make that point to pay attention to how the money is distributed. Right? So it's all about it's about concentration of too much of anything in one area. You got to make sure that everybody gets an appropriate spread. Everybody get a decent plate. We just talked about Thanksgiving. Like everybody gets a base plate, right? And so it's just the right balance. So I'm not arguing that point. We're going to let that go. Just FYI. And then finally, out of this, we've got our fund balance has grown to what you said, 28% or 28 million. What was your number?
It's 20, the beginning was 28 million, but estimated your unassigned fund balance would be 29,087,567.
Okay. I think it's important to highlight now. I don't have it off the top of my mind, and Madam Chair, I know you also have created asked for a spreadsheet to show the fund balance over time. That fund balance is important to keep up with. We won't belabor it now, but it gives you what you've got to work with. Right? It gives you a base level. Right? This is your operating. This is stuff that keeps you going throughout the year. Right? And you have to expend this cash before you can borrow cans, etc. But what's important here is say, okay, guys, look, this is solid. It needs to be stated in case this is solid. A couple of years ago, we were at the bottom. We were down there around the 10%. We were below our minimum policy. We were just barely at the edge. And then obviously the pandemic hit and things like that. This is now we had to make some hard decisions last year. You can't run from that hard decision to recalibrate this thing. Allows us now to be stable. We put those policies in place. Say, okay, you can't tinker with it. Right? And so now we can move forward on a solid footing. So now we can begin to address some things historically that have been neglected or not taken care of. But you have to acknowledge that you know what you're looking at. This is a solid financial undergirding. But now it becomes, how do we go forward? How do we now apply taxation going forward? So I won't belabor this, Madam Chair. That was long enough. I just had to hit those highlights. Again, we got to wait for the public to say something tomorrow, and I guess the board will finalize everything on 13/14. I yield, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Vice Chair. Any other remarks from the board?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Guider, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Rosalind, the 29 million fund balance estimate, does that include expenditures that will not be spent this year?
You there you are.
It does not. If we don't have to slide up. Actually, your ending fund balance is 41 million. Then we've taken out all of the obligations, things that we can't use the money for. Obligations that's already been made, and then that's where you get the 29. It's about for non-spendable and restricted items that have already been assigned. It's 12.5 million. So if you minus 41 million minus the 12.9, that's where we get the 29 million. for your 22.
But is it allocations against the last budget report, on the expenditure side? Have they obligated some of those funds? Is some of that rollover, as you would say, is it including, has it been taken out of the expenditures?
Yes, it has. We estimated it would be about $9 million.
That will be on the unspent side on the expenditures.
That is correct.
Okay, because I did a trending and it showed like we would have like 7 million left over. So, but on another thing, you're showing no growth in the digest. I cannot remember at any time that we show no growth in the digest. If we're not growing, then what are we doing here? So, why are you showing no growth in the digest?
That is to be in line with your financial policy. It states that for your proposed budget your revenue would have to be, remain the same as last year. And to do that, you wouldn't be able to show any growth. But you're correct. And if that occurs, then it's either more money in fund balance or you reallocate.
Yeah. Also, you're using a collection rate of 93%. In the past, it's been much higher than that. It may not have been last year because of the pandemic, but we didn't know the pandemic was going to happen at that time. So, 90, I thought 95 or 96 was the norm for the collection rate on property taxes.
And again, it is just to stay within the financial policy, stating that the revenue has to remain the same. But you're absolutely right. That 104 can be maybe 108, but per your policy, you have to, keep the same revenue as last year.
That could be another windfall, though.
That is correct.
Also, on the splosh, you said that our debt service, we have a 4 million plus last payment that's coming up. Do we have any of that money set aside now?
Oh yes, definitely. Yes.
How much?
We've reached the 4 million. So we're not allocating or reserving, removing payments for debt service. We do have the debt service in the account.
And you've got 4 million in there.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Good to hear. And one last question is on the ARPA funds. Now, it showed so much of the ARPA funds in the revenues, but where's the rest of it? Where is it posted?
The rest will come. We're going to create a totally separate account for ARPA. The only reason we have a transfer in for ARPA for general fund is because of salaries.
Right.
So if we purchase, I can't think of one of the items right off, but it would actually hit the ARPA account. So the revenue and the expenditures would match. So we have an ARPA fund.
That's separate from any of the figures that you've given.
Yeah, and we only had to do the transfer in if you're talking about salaries, since salaries is in general fund.
And out of the BRR requests from the department heads, are any of those set aside in the ARPA funds?
Yes. It was technology. I believe technology totaled 1.6, and that's countywide.
Okay.
So we're looking at ARPA will fund all of the department's technology requests.
So the request that each elected official submitted the other day, how much of that's already set set aside in the ARPA funds? Do you know?
That I don't.
Trying to get to a realistic figure here.
Oh, I know. Is the county administrator, can she help me out? I'm not sure if we had the ARPA on this slide. No.
Madam Chair, do you want me to weigh in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Guider, I do not believe there were any duplicates. I think everything that was on the list from commissioners was separate, and we identified funding sources, but I do not believe there were any duplicates.
Rosalind, is that what you just said? It seemed like Rosalind said something different.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, it's not duplicate. Like the technology is not in general fund. The technology requests are in the ARPA fund.
I know that. Are they on the BIR list?
Yes.
Yeah, if you're talking about the total list, I thought you meant the list that the commissioners.
That's what I'm talking about. The ones that we submitted. I apologize for that.
Yeah, the list that you that we recorded from you last at the Retreat 2.0, I do not believe any of that is funded by ARPA. We would have pulled it out and identified it as being funded already.
Okay. Rosalind, is that your understanding also?
Yes, that's my understanding. And if it's listed, we just list it as, a funding source that out of, that the board's priority is technology. So on the sheet, we listed the 1.6, but the funding source is ARPA. So it's just presentation.
Okay, so some of the items on the request from the commissioners are on the ARPA funding.
That is correct. And Rick, could you pull that presentation one up again? But, yeah, there's no duplicates. It's just presentation and putting it all together. And we've listed what the board's priorities are, and then we identified a funding source. So we stated that the board's priority was technology, and so we took all the technology requests, and just for presentation, we listed it on your priority, but it's ARPA. It's going to be funded from ARPA and not from general fund or any other fund.
And we can take this offline, but I would like a separate list that's not going to be paid by the ARPA fund.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you just
I'm just trying to get down to the net figure that the commissioners have asked for that is not to be funded under the ARPA funds.
okay. So you would just want general fund items.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Guider, and thank you so much, Rosalind. Any other comments or remarks for it?
Just one, Madam Chair.
Okay. You have the floor, Commissioner Mitchell.
Yeah, just one. So Rosalind, if you would, I think you may have stated this, but I've been in and out. But the ARPA fund, the increase, the pay increase. Please kind of hit me with that again. I'm assuming, if I'm correct in making the statement, that that's majority, well, all ARPA versus out of the general funds, correct?
You're absolutely correct. For the first year, which would be in 2022, regular employees will receive 5%. Public safety will receive 10%, and this is a 10% and 5% increase to their salary. And that first year, which would be 2022, it would be funded by ARPA, not general fund. So there is a funding source for the first year. And then for the second year, regular employees will get another 5% increase, and public safety will get a 5% increase. And that would be in year 2023. And again, that would have a revenue, and it will not touch general fund. But year 2024, there is not a revenue tied to the expenditure. So per policy, you have to find revenue. You have to have a balanced budget. So if you have a non-recurring revenue, you're going to have a non-recurring. If you have a non-recurring expenditure, you're going to have a non-recurring revenue. So in year 2024, we're anticipating that it would come from general fund.
Got it. Thank you. And I just wanted the public kind of rehear that basically that statement for sure. My other question, in addition to that, when you speak of public safety at 10, who is public safety? Is that fire, EMS, coroner, E911, and so on and so forth, or is that specifically just the sheriff only? The first year.
The first year, no, it is. I may need some help, but it is. You have fire. You have the sheriff's department. You have code enforcement. I may need some help.
Madam Superintendent, if you can chime in, if you would, please.
Sure. It's all first responders. So sheriff department, sworn officers, E911, sheriff dispatch, fire, EMS, EMA, animal services, code enforcement, and we also have park security, and we have a few sworn officers that are in constitutional offices.
But does that include the coroner?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it does include.
Yes.
Okay.
It does.
Got it. Okay. And thank you again. I appreciate that. One last question. I think that really everything else has been spoken of. Oh, and you spoke about the last payment for SPLOST, which is already accounted for. So we're good in making that payment. It just, we wait till that date comes to make that payment, correct? And I think it's April or somewhere, am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So it's already accounted for.
It is. It's sitting in a bank account.
Great. Drawing interest out. No, okay. And with this budget, what was your approach? Conservatively, trying to be real conservative. Can you justifiably, between you and Madam Superintendent, justify your approach to this particular budget being as conservative as you could be to make sure that we account for the revenue and expenses, but or was it strictly based off of the 93 or 95% from what the tax commissioner collects, as our policy states? I think it is.
County Administrator, did you want to? I followed you.
Sure, Commissioner Mitchell, we followed the board's policy in terms of revenue. And as stated earlier, that's why those assumptions were made in order to stay within policy. As we went department by department, we did try to make sure, and all the constitutionals and electeds that we met with, we did try to fund things that were considered core. Things like cleaning, excess cleaning for COVID. Those are basic requirements that they're gonna have to meet. Paying utilities, those are not really optional. So we made sure to cover the bases, the core items that departments and constitutionals and elected officers need in order to run the government. Separate from that were proposed additions to core, which I wouldn't call them wish lists. I think these are things that departments really need, but they're over and above their core basic requirement. And that's what you see summarized by category. And then the last piece was to get your input at the Retreat 2.0, in which you expressed the items that were requested on the proposed additions to core that you would like to champion or sponsor. So that's kind of where we are at this point. The budget includes no increase in the millage rate, obviously. And now it's really up to you. And after public input, I guess you'll decide what you fund off of the proposed addition to core list.
And last but not least, so those who of us who kind of want to champion a couple of items, are those within this budget, or are those separate, or that's a separate conversation?
That's a separate conversation. That's the list that, in fact, it just popped on the screen a few minutes ago. It was emailed out to you the day of the retreat. At the end of the retreat, we sent that out. We showed you the funding source. We put it by category so that because some of what you requested, for example, was in the unincorporated. We demonstrated where that was, which would be separate from the $1 million from general fund. That was emailed out to you that day. It was emailed out again after that. It was requested another time. And it's the last slide that you saw that included everything that you asked us to put on the list.
Oh, so my last final question though. So those items are a part of this budget or not?
They're not part of the base. The base is at 103. You have capacity at 104. You have $1 million to work with, and your list is a little bit above that.
A lot of bit above that, but okay. Thank you. All right, I yield at this point. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner. All right, if there are no other questions, board, we're going to move on to our
Madam
next.
Chair?
Vice Chairman Robinson.
Yeah, just one point of clarity I think is important. Again, as the public thing, and I appreciate Madam Guyver and Commissioner Mitchell's comments regarding the approach to the budget. Y'all got to read that financial policy we put in place last year. It had teeth. It stabilized. It doesn't matter what you're thinking, but okay, that's all you're going to get every year for our year. And the board has the capacity to be able to expand above beyond that. Madam Guyver's right. Typically, there is growth. We know that during the recession, we had some negative growth in the digest. We had some, some flats and stuff. I mean, but those are in extreme times. But normally, there is some degree of growth for the most part. But it assumes none. I historically have always tried to encourage, Madam Chair, your base budget plus new growth. But the policy was even more conservative than that. It's no growth. It's like, where are you going? Now, if something comes, now we can always expand. In other words, you've got room, you've got capacity, but it's flat. No windfalls. Where are you going? If it comes in, it goes straight to the general fund. It restricts your capacity to that point. Okay, we got a little windfall. So like going and getting that Google money, we spent $5 million on an animal show. It doesn't allow that anymore. You really have to appreciate what we've got. We can just sit back and let this every year. Now it's gonna roll. You're playing with a penny. Commissioner Mitchell's point. Yeah, okay, guys, we get the shape that we don't have to worry about where things are going. Now it sits anything above and beyond, just goes straight to the general fund. I think we'll keep expanding. If you have someone else that you want to do, you now have capacity. Right, but that thing is killer. It is strong, that policy and stuff, and it really matures us, it stabilizes. So I do appreciate Roz and you, and Chairman, specifically David, who helped us shape that last year. Because it rings out a lot of things that we don't have to sit here and speculate as part-time people showing up like, okay, now how they spend $100 million? Where'd that money go? All we got to do is keep up with it, so that one-off, which is the 1%. So I think that's important, Madam Chair, that you got something to work with. The assumptions are conservative, right? In other words, well, I mean, if the tax commissioner wants to say you got beyond 90, then that's fiscal, right? But in essence, we can't manipulate the budget by moving these variables around. Like, no, guys, that'd be stable now. Like, yeah, you can create revenue, but like, okay, why y'all just steady? Just work with what you got. That was the whole point. Like, we do those budget moments, 8 times new growth, we've been there. Right? So we see the need is $33 million. It's huge, guys. Steady. Just be steady. And I appreciate it, but this is some good work. I appreciate you guys. The process we had to go through to get here, I'm fine, but again, I'm interested in hearing what the public has to say tomorrow, Madam Chair. So Commissioner Mitchell's point, we will solve it in 2 weeks as far as what the ultimate end goal is going to be. But I think it's solid going into tomorrow. I yield, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Vice Chairman. All right, if there are no other discussions, well, we're going to move on to the next item. one more presentation. It's the Comprehensive Transportation Plan Update. And that is Director Valentine. Director Valentine, are you planning to give a full update today? Are you?
No, Madam Chair, we will be providing a short executive summary of the analysis that was conducted over the last 15 months or so. And this will be the board's final opportunity to provide any input, any comments. That will be then wrapped into the final report that will be adopted by the board at a later date. If I may proceed, Madam Chair.
Yes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have an executive summary presentation of the CPP from our consultant, VHB. And Rick, if you can pull that up, we will have Fabricio Ponce of VHB guide us through the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Miguel, do you want me to just go ahead and share my screen? Or Rick, would that be easier?
Well, sure. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead and share your screen.
Perfect. Okay, let me know if you can see it. I can go ahead.
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. As I have here with me also part of our team, Grady Smith and Michael Hightower, who have been an intrinsic part of the project and have worked with us during this last 15 months, as Miguel indicated. And I'll give you a quick executive summary, as Miguel said, of what we've been up to during this a little bit over a year. So, with that being said, let me get going. So, as I said, I'll give a very quick overview of the CTP process, talk a little bit about what we did, the inventory of existing and future conditions, the goals and objectives that we identified, the needs. That's a key component of this plan, is to really figure out what's needed from a transportation infrastructure between now and 2050. And then based on that needs, touch a little bit on recommendations and what the conclusions are. And if at any point you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to interrupt me and ask. That the idea is to have an interactive conversation. So, what is a CTP? Well, I think you all know by now. It's this comprehensive transportation plan, and the idea is to create this roadmap for Douglas County to invest in transportation infrastructure for the next 30 years. When we started working on this, we knew that this CTP was important in order to position the county to compete for federal and state funding. We had an idea. We knew that it was important. I think we didn't really know how important it was. Now with the infrastructure bill in place, that component, it's even more relevant. Also, it's an opportunity to collaborate with our partners. It was about time. Last time it was updated in 2009, and it's great to hear from the public, from you, and from our stakeholder and technical committee, to get the input from everyone. We didn't do this in the vacuum or by ourselves. We had a lot of partners that work with us on this, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see them there. So what we did is we, as I mentioned during the introduction, we did an inventory of existing and future conditions. Then based on that inventory, we assess what the needs would be. And then based on those needs, we developed a set of different recommendations. But all of those were done with input from the stakeholder and technical committee, the transportation committee, and of course, the general public. So Inventory of existing and future conditions. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but we looked at previous studies. We looked at where people live and where people are going to live in the future, unemployment, land use, proposed development, different travel trends. The congestion, of course, is extremely important. See how the county and the roadways are performing. We took a look at transit and also at bike and pedestrian facilities. Safety, of course, is a key component, and also freight. We know how important is freight, especially these days. So based on that, and with input from all the different committees and the public, we developed a set of goals and objectives, with the first one being to enhance mobility. Of course, safety, it's a high priority, as I just mentioned. To really coordinate these transportation improvements with land use, where land use is located, because that's really going to dictate where those improvements are needed, and also how we can use transportation to enhance our community, the quality of our community. So, identification of needs. We looked at this from a maintenance perspective. I think you've heard me talking about this in previous presentations, that additional maintenance is really needed in the county. Also, we looked at the roadways from an operational, from a safety, from a widening perspective, and if new roads are needed in the county. We also looked at identifying need as from an active transportation perspective. Also transit, the need for additional services, but more importantly, coming out of this pandemic, the need to perform to conduct a reassessment of the system and really see how we can tweak it and improve it. And then it's what I called, or we call, other improvements and or other needs, and I'm gonna get into that in a few minutes. But at the end of the day, what is this supposed to mean? So we have all these needs, this big bucket of transportation infrastructure needs. Well, what this means is that at the end of the day, we're talking a $2.1 billion plan between now and 2050. I know that this is a more than significant amount of funds that are needed. However, I should highlight that approximately 2/3 of this is really federal and state. So that the vast majority of that 1.4 or 1,400 billion is really the I-20, the express lanes. That's a major project that's on GDOT is really working on. But then what we are really focusing on is on the top yellow rectangle, the local funds and what we called in the plan to be defined, really the funds that we need to figure out where they're going to come from if we really want to fund all of those needs. So the 703 million, how is that really, where is that coming from? Well, there's as I mentioned, there's a transit, there's an active transportation, there's a maintenance, and there's a roadway component. So I'm not going to go into all the numbers, they are on the screen, but as you can see, roadways, of course, is a significant, is the largest portion of it, followed by the need for additional maintenance and the transit needs, and then active transportation is really the fourth from a magnitude perspective. So, okay, so now we know that the question we're really trying to answer is a $703 million question. We know, or we have an idea where those numbers are coming from. So how these numbers stacks up against our revenue. So what we did is we did a forecast of the SPLOST, and we said, well, the SPLOST can cover or will generate approximately 250 over the next approximately 30 years or 28, 29 years. So we still have approximately 450 million that we need to figure out. We need to see how we pay if we really want to cover all the needs. So based on that, what we did is we said, well, let's take a look at projects. Well, the first thing that we did from a recommendations perspective is we said, well, if we're trying to answer a question for 703 million, and right now, just based on this plus, assuming that this continues all the way through 2050, we have 250 million. What we really need to do is, well, we have funding constraints. We have some issues. So we need to put projects in different buckets. And the first 5 years, the second 5 years, and then the rest of the period. And then what we call aspiration, that is 2050 plus. Those are the projects that we, based on the current revenue, we would not be able to fund. So in order to do this, we needed to set priorities. So we needed, and what did we use for those priorities? Well, of course, the goals and objectives. That's why we identified goals and objectives. But we also looked at projects that are already in this plus. If they are in this plus, of course they are a priority. But also the regional transportation plan, there are commitments in the regional transportation plan. So we need to be able to honor those commitments. And of course, the general input that we got through the project from the public, but also from the different stakeholders and from the transportation committee. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, there's a bucket that we call other recommendations that may not be necessarily projects themselves, but are things that we need to take into consideration. One of them is the outer southern loop. We know that at some point there's an idea of really putting that into this. According to our assessment and our analysis, this is something that would not be, from a capacity perspective, would be really needed in the time frame of this plan. However, it's never too early to start thinking about right-of-way preservation. So that is something that if we want this loop to at some point happen, we need to start preserving the right-of-way. As you probably know, the ARC is currently conducting what's called, or it's in the process of developing the scope for a regional electrification plan. This is basically EV vehicles and chargers, so it's a plan for the region. So our advice is we don't want to duplicate efforts. So let's see what the ARC really does, but we may need to supplement that analysis and conduct an analysis for the county to really figure out how that's going to work. We know that electric vehicles are not only here to stay, but if anything, we continue to hear that many more automakers are announcing that they're going to stop building gas combustion engines in the future. So that's something that we need to take into consideration. And of course, a technology roadmap. So we identified what we call a technology roadmap, but as you know, there's an abundance of data these days. So there's always an opportunity to take better advantage of this available data and make informed decisions. So we put a general framework for a technology roadmap for the short, medium, and long term. So based on that, and based on the fact that, as I mentioned before, that the current, assuming that the current plus continues through the year 2050, there's an additional need for funding. What we did is we developed four different scenarios. One was continuing with this plus, the base scenario, continuing this plus through 2050. Another one is, what if something like a T plus gets implemented around 2025, and that would require, of course, for the T plus to pass before 2025, but 2025 is when the revenue would start. And what if at that point we stop collect, or the plus, really the fundings collected by the plus go to something else other than transportation. Another scenario is we continue with that, we evaluate this, we continue with this plus, but we only implement the half penny T plus. And then the other one is everything in the kitchen sink. We continue with this plus, but in addition, we put on top of that a full penny for the T plus. Now, what we also did is, and I'm trying not to overcomplicate it, but what we also did is for each of these four scenarios, we assumed different levels of state and federal funding. So we had like 1A, B, C to A, B, C, assuming different levels of, as I said, of state and federal. And the reason for that is that if now we have more local funds, we're maybe able to leverage those local funds and get additional funds from state and the federal government. So we wanted to see how that would play out and how would that allow us to basically fund additional projects. So that's the reason why we did. So I'm just gonna quickly touch on a couple of projects, on a couple of the scenarios, and show you a little bit of what we have in place right now. But so the first one is basically just a T-SPLOST through 2050. It's the absolute base scenario. Keeping it simple, if that is the case, approximately 36% of the needs that we identified as part of this plan will be funded. The rest of the needs, the 64%, the balance, that would be part of what we call the aspirational project list, the projects that would happen after 2050. So then another one that we evaluated was basically what if, as I said, we implemented T-SPLOST and no-SPLOST after that. If that's the case, the number jumps to 65%. So we go from the 36 to 65. So almost 2/3 of the projects would be afforded if that is really the scenario. That's the option. So, but now, as I mentioned, we have additional local funds. So what if we can leverage those additional local funds to get more federal funds? Well, if we can get approximately another 25% of local funds on top of what we're already getting, or what the county is already getting, that number jumps to approximately 81%. So as you can see, we're getting close. So when we leverage those, we have this additional T-SPLOST, but also we have additional state and federal funds that helps a lot. So the last one is, as I said, everything and the kitchen sink is SPLOST in 2050 plus a T-SPLOST. If that is the case, pretty much the entire plan can be afforded. Everything can be funded between now and 2050. So you see this number. This is pretty much entire plan. The previous number was 80%. So what this is really telling us is that if we really want to be able to fund the entire needs that we have identified, entire infrastructure needs that the county will need in the next 28 years, 29 years. There's no silver bullet, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead and talking about the conclusions, but there's no silver bullet. It's a combination of different things that are going to need to happen. So as I mentioned before, there's significant growth anticipated between now and 2050, and to support this growth, we really need additional transportation infrastructure. That's a given. That's not an option. So based on that, we developed a list of projects, approximately 150 projects, plus what we mentioned, other recommendations. As I said before, the current SPLOST can cover approximately 36% of these needs. Therefore, it could be part of the answer, definitely, but it's not the only answer. The answer really to be able to fund the plan, the entire plan, is a combination of different funding sources. Of course, additional federal funding is coming. We know the infrastructure bill passed. However, we also know that this is the time and this is the opportunity to also leverage local funds, because this is a time where local funds can really go a long way, a longer way than usual, if the county is able to go to the state and federal government and leverage those funds. So that is really trying to keep it as short as possible, and an executive summary of what we've been working on during the last, as Miguel said, approximately 15 months. So with that, I will open it to questions.
Thank you so much, Big Cheryl. Thank you so much. Board of Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Potts? Okay, Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. To my peers and to the full public, this was also presented during our one of our recent transportation committees, and it was important for us to send this on to the full board to get this information, because it was a 15-month process. process. This process is required by law. We have to do this. All right, so then my question, Miguel, is when do we have to submit this? What's the next step? We have to pass a resolution adopting this?
That is correct, Commissioner. What will happen is, based on the presentation, the information gathered to date, and any input that is provided by the board today, the consultant will finalize the plan, and there will be a resolution adopting the plan that will need to go to the Atlanta Regional Commission. That can happen at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, just want to set the expectation to my peers. Again, you guys have been involved along the way. You guys have participated in the focus groups and input meetings and stuff. And so this is just sort of the tie-off, the conclusion of this 15-month process. I just want to make a couple points. And the reason that I advocate for putting this during this agenda, along with the budget, because it shows context. So Miguel, how much do we spend annually? What's your annual budget? Your historical, I know we sort of broke it up a little bit, but what's the historical commitment to transportation annually?
It's around $4 million.
All right, so $4 million out of $100 million. I need the public to hear this. That's 4%. Barely above what we provide for our senior services and children. But the real price tag, as you see, is it's huge. Right? Commissioner Goddard brings up, over times past, we've been together a decade, but she always gives the educational insight that we used to be called the Board of Roads and Revenues, before it became the Board of Commissioners. Our job was to oversee the collection of the process, and once the money comes in, we're supposed to divvy it out for revenues, and then of course we had the roads. That's a whole function, but now it looks like the money, the taxation is only going to a very small point, and that's the part that you experience on a daily basis. That's why I'm always sensitive when we hear the dog and ponies regarding the annual budget process. It's so internally focused. It's so about, look at us. We're like, yeah, but you gotta make sure you tie that back to the citizens. Think about it. It's like you got 100,000 voters.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Hey guys, y'all turn your
phone
off.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Walter. I'm making a point that, like, okay, think about it. That you can't be so internally focused as a government that you don't connect it to the citizens. And then when they pull out their car, they want to get on their roads, they want to experience their tax dollars, but it's expensive. And they're showing you that, yeah, we're going to have to leverage our capital stack. And yeah, we've shown that we've been taking over this current SPLOST, so 50%, roughly a little bit over 50% went to transportation. But like you said, for 30 years, okay, we ain't maintained nothing. His number one point was like, okay, maintenance, we got to get going on maintaining that already is dilapidated. Then he talked about operational safety. Thank you guys. We just finished Maxim Road. That was key. We just finished that thing out. It's beautiful, Miguel. I did go by there. We finally fixed that operational safety. As you know, we lost a couple of citizens over there from pedestrian to car collisions. Right? That's just one part in this entire county that needs to be done. And of course, mobility, east-west. So, but again, it costs, he's talking about billions. Right? He's talking about over 30 years. Now, we can only focus on the first 5 to 10 years. What I'm sure that's about 2 SPLOST work. Right? 2 more SPLOST work to get you to that first part of the list. We will not be able to realize everything. That's why part of it is aspirational. And again, if you have to lay this out, right? Okay, so how y'all gonna approach it? It's expensive. The state gave us other funding mechanisms beyond your general fund budget. They're like, okay, they can't pay for this out of the normal taxation. You gotta have an extra tax, an extra penny to be able to fund this. Right? And we gotta show how this ties back to the citizens. It can't be all about our own internal shiny objects. It's got to be like, okay, guys, make sure now that the citizens see where their tax dollars are going, and they get that we got to buy for people who actually deliver the services. But at the same point, okay, can I get my bike lane, can I get my street light, can I get my road paved, can you fill that pothole? Can you put a curb cut over here? Can you put a guardrail? Can you restrike this thing? Can we get some that was called mulch and stuff out in the district? Well, can we get some fluorine, fluoride? Can you meet our needs? And it's expensive. So this is something that is important. Yes, we have a once in a lifetime, obviously, with this infrastructure is something that is once in a lifetime. And yes, hopefully we've got a grant writer, people who are going to be focused on this with Miguel. Make sure we go get that money. Yes, Grady, Mr. Smith, Mr. Hightower, Frizo, thank you guys for insight. Y'all need to get ahead of this now. You got to get in queue. Yes, this money going to be there, but y'all got to get going. Y'all got to have a dedicated resource. You can't have somebody diluted doing multiple things. Like, okay, are y'all committed or not? It's going to be competitive. And you're going to have to go back and get this. So I wanted to put this on the docket at the same time, I'm sure, so we can compare it as we're doing our annual budget to recognize you got this big need here. It can't be done in your annual budget. And yet the citizens say, well, how y'all going to do it? Like, okay, look, we're only putting 4% of our entire budget against the very thing that's like, okay, well, we can't get there with this. And so we have to use other funding mechanisms. And that was the whole point. So, Madam Chair, I just wanted to drop home that point. Again, this is something that we'll have to take up at our next meeting. If you so please, put on the agenda for us to adopt this and get it filed with the ARC before the end of the year. I yield, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Vice Chairman. Any other remarks for it? All right. Thank you so much, Director Valentine, and also Mr. Potts and Mr. Hightower, and then Mr. Grady. Thank you so much for just going above and beyond working on this project. It's been 12 years since we've had an actual comprehensive transportation plan in Douglas County, and it is perfect timing with the new infrastructure bill. I'm so excited about that. Hopefully it will yield big results for us. I just had one question for you, Patricio. This $703 million obligation, local obligation for the county. And, you know, we talked about all the way up to 2050. Did we build any, did we put any money, or did you earmark any consideration for maintenance? You know, because, you know, as soon as you pave a road and drive off from it, or construct one, you know, it starts breaking down immediately. So did you make any funding appropriations for maintenance?
Yes, Madam Chair. What we did is, and just to clarify, the 703 is local and to be defined. So it could be additional federal or additional state that the county may be able to get help with. But we put additional maintenance right now based on the current SPLOST that allocates approximately $3 million a year. It would take approximately almost 40 years for the county roadway network. And this is just the county, not the state roads within the county, because in those cases, the GDO takes care of that. But it would take approximately 40 years for the entire county to get repaved. What that means is that a road would get repaved once every 40 years. Needless to say, that's less than desirable. So what we did is, what we included is that as an average, the road would get repaved once every 20 years, which this is an average. Some roadways are going to need to get repaved sooner than that, depending on traffic volumes. Some other roads, for example, like, you know, local roads in subdivisions and things like that, once every 20, 25 years is perfectly fine. So, but I know it was a long answer, but the question is, yes, we're basically doubling the maintenance that right now the county is providing.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for your response. Any other questions or remarks for it? Thank you so much, Director Valentine, and the entire team for presenting today. If there's nothing else, we're going to move on to the next item.
Let me see if I can stop sharing. Sure.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, I encourage you to please take a look at the minutes for tomorrow. We have certainly the approval of the minutes that will be coming before us. So please review the minutes and be prepared to approve it accordingly. We have a public hearing tomorrow, which will be our proposed 2022 budget. Certainly that will come before us, and it will be led by Rosalind Miller. County Administrative Business, I don't see any on here today, unless there's some. I think we do. And then grants, we're going to move on to grants, which is tab number 6, authorization to accept a LEO grant from the CJCC in the amount of $25,807 for the state court DUI drug court program, and amend the budget and have the chairman sign accordingly. Anita Granger, Ms. Granger, are you on the line?
I am, Madam Chair, thank you. So this is a no match grant. It will begin on January 1 and run through June 30th of 2022. So it will affect next year's budget, not this year's. It will help to pay for the surveillance of the participants in the DUI drug court program in the state court only. And so I ask that you will allow us to accept these funds. It is a reimbursement grant as well.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Granger. Any questions for Mrs. Granger, board? All right, you answered my question up front. You said no match, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, but have a great day, Ms. Granger.
Well, I got one more item.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have one more item. Yeah, it's down a couple down below.
Yeah, I see it, tab number 10.
Thank you.
Tab number 10 is approval of MOU with Ascension Counseling and Mental Health LLC for services to the state court DUI drug court treatment program and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Mrs. Granger, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is just a renewal of the MOU for the current treatment provider that all of our accountability courts, other than family treatment court, of course, are using. We have gone through the 3-year cycle on the previous MOU. The only changes to this MOU are a minor adjustment in the cost. Everybody else is getting an increase, and they have not had an increase in probably about 5 years. So it's time for a little increase in the fees that they charge us for group and individual sessions. I have forwarded the MOU to the legal department for their review as well.
Okay. Any questions, board?
Yes, ma'am.
Question Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you. So you said this is mental health services. Where in the jail? Where is this? Or no?
No. These are not mental health
The court.
services. That's the name of his. Yes, sir. It's for the accountability court, the DUI drug court,
Yeah.
Ascension Counseling and Mental Health Services. They do the treatment for all the accountability courts in the active accountability court programs.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so and we're satisfied with their service delivery.
Yes, sir. We have we're getting a data evaluation this year, and I don't have all the full report, but you guys will get it when we do get it. Right now, we have, excuse me, we have a 89% graduation rate. A lot of that's due to our treatment team and Ascension Mental Health. So they're doing a great job of helping our participants to get through their struggles.
And I appreciate it. And again, you knew where I was going.
Yes, I did.
Get hold of that report, and we appreciate it. Because again, we just want to, I'm trusting you guys are saying that the outcomes that you're looking for are being realized. I know that's a relative statement, right? But and so again, we just are looking for, are you comfortable? And if so, they can show you that the use of these dollars are allowing you to accomplish what you need and being able to. So the outcome is what? These people graduate and then what?
And they do. Yeah. Well, hopefully the outcome is that they continue on the road of recovery for the rest of their lives. But the main outcome of accountability courts is to make sure that people don't recidivize or go back into the legal system, right? We are hopeful that the treatment that they receive not only helps them with their recovery, but helps them to change their thinking so that they don't believe it's okay to break the law and get arrested for things that are drug or alcohol related. Our judges are very committed to these programs, as you know, Commissioner Robinson. And like I said, we are going through an evaluation. We did a process evaluation earlier in the year, and we're in the process of completing our data evaluation. And once we do get that full report, I'm sure the judges are going to want to share it with the commissioners to show you what the outcomes actually are showing. And we are confident that our outcomes are very high up on the scale in the state of Georgia.
No doubt, and I'm not obviously discounting the efforts of the leadership of Judge Bo McClain and helping kick that off and expand it, throughout the judicial side. Don't get me wrong, I'm a full supporter.
Yes.
Again, just by way of the outcome. So it really, to that point, it's the accountability is you want to go to jail, you want to go to home. So how do you offer this to everybody? Is it in this 18-month program, right?
So I actually don't work with Judge McLean. His programs are different than the state court programs. I work with Judge Barker and Judge Fortner. Well, we do work with Judge McLean in a sense in that some of the people that don't qualify for his program do come into our drug track. Douglas County is very unique in that we all work together, state and superior court. Excuse me. I have a little frog in my throat this morning. You'll have to excuse that. But where we try to make sure that we have space for everybody who wants to be a part of our programs. It is an 18 to 24 month intensive outpatient treatment program for people with substance use disorder. Mostly what makes people eligible for our track is multiple DUIs. If they have multiple DUIs, automatically we will start to look at them and have a clinical evaluation done to see if they are clinically appropriate for our programs. A lot of times we have 2 tiers in our program. We have a DUI track and a drug track, and then they have the felony drug court, the mental health court or HOPE court, and the veterans court on the superior court side. And Mr. Nation, who is the owner and CEO of Ascension, he does the clinical evaluations and makes a determination as to what track do they best fit so that we can make sure they're getting the services that they need. So you have your high risk, high need folks in all of the tracks, but depending upon what their needs are and their risk level is where we place them to make sure they're getting the appropriate treatment in the appropriate dose.
So this is the guy that makes the call. Got it. That's what I was getting to. Okay.
Well,
he
makes the call with the team. So he makes the recommendation and we all get to digest that information and then make the call together.
Understood. No. You know, we stay in our lane. You just educated me. We appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm good. I'm sufficient. She's answered my question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other remarks, board? If not, I'm gonna move on. Thank you so much, Mrs. Granger.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
I will sign off if that will be okay.
Okay. Board of Commissioners, we're gonna move to tab number 7, which is under business items. It's approval to allocate budgeted and unused salary funds for incentive hazard pay for all juvenile court employees in the amount of $5,000 for each employee, total gross amount of $35,000. And this item was total, and I believe our Attorney Coleman wanted to add, but I will I see Judge Harrison on here, but I wanted Attorney Coleman to speak as well. Attorney Coleman, are you here?
I am, Madam Chair, and I'd recommend that we continue to table this matter for now to allow me an opportunity to work with the judge to address some legal questions about the proposal as proposed. So that'd be my recommendation. And I'm not sure if the judge has anything further to add, or if she would concur with that, or where she is on that.
At this time, I will concur with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Judge. And thank you so much, Attorney Coleman. So you all are looking in this matter, and then we will discuss it at a later date. Thank you. We're going to move on to tab number 8, approval of a new county policy, safety compensation policy, and that was tabled also. So that would be something that we would be looking forward to untable tomorrow. Any remarks regarding this policy? If not, we'll just keep moving.
No, Madam Chair, it's before the public tomorrow as a hearing, so we'll wait till tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. And then tab number 9 is authorization to apply for the fiscal year 2022 law enforcement training program and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Our Assistant County Administrator, Tiffany Stewart Stanley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. So we are asking to apply for the fiscal year 2022 law enforcement training program. The Governor Brian Kemp and the state legislature approved $7.5 million to provide law enforcement training, a program for our state and local law enforcement agencies. The focus of the program is for mental health training, and the focus should be around de-escalation training, crisis intervention team training, and then training to support officer mental health. This will be a partnership with our Douglas County CSP. They will provide the training. The due date for this is December 1st, and we are asking for $92,000, roughly $92,000. There is no match for the grant, and we will act as a fiscal agent for the CSB. This will be a reimbursement grant, but this grant will provide training not only to our sheriff's officers, but training will be available for any other law enforcement agencies in Douglas County, and it has to be applied by a local government. The grant has to be applied for by a local government. So we're just asking for approval.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Board of Commissioners, any questions, remarks regarding this? Vice
Madam
Chairman
Chair.
Robinson, you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great program. I mean, a great opportunity, I'll put it that way, to sort of take advantage of this. If anybody from the sheriff's office that's involved, can they weigh in? Are they here? Is Lieutenant Colonel Pounds or Deputy?
Yeah.
Anyone here?
I don't know if they are here, but I have been working with Ken Connor over at
Yep.
the sheriff's office, so they are
Yeah.
involved and aware of the grant program.
Okay. All right. Well, I was just wondering, I'd love to hear their voice regarding this opportunity. I mean, obviously it's tough out there. And every situation is not, good versus bad. There are some people who have an illness, and how do you handle that and not take it to the point of, getting to a fatality that we can de-escalate and see how we can, not go there. And so but again, the burden that it takes for our officers, our deputies to be out there and deal with this. Anything we can provide in way of support, we should do it. So yes, compensation is important, but training is as well. And acknowledging those. So, guys,
please,
y'all.
everybody put your your microphones on mute, please. Okay, you have the floor.
Yeah, no. And I was just making the point that this was important. So I'd love to still want to hear tomorrow when this goes forth for an actual vote, to have somebody from the sheriff's office to come and just weigh in on this. Can you do that for us, Assistant Administrator?
Yes, Vice Chairman Robinson, I will make sure to reach out to them. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, that's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, Board? If not, I'm gonna move on. All right, Board, we've already covered tab number 10. We're gonna move on to tab number 11, authorization for the chairman to execute a car allowance agreement for Dia Warren in the district attorney's office with no budget impact. And this is just a name change to the car allowance agreement. Laura Thompson, you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone.
Good
Yes,
morning.
we are asking for a name change, and the chairman to authorize. Name change has no impact to the budget at all. It is just a name change on the car allowance agreement.
Thank you so much, Mrs.
Thank
Thompson.
you.
Any other questions, Board? Okay, no questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Tab number 12, authorization to acquire Matterhorn software service, which is ICON online dispute resolution ODR agreement, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Janissa Miller, you have the floor. Ms. Miller, are you on the line?
I don't see her line, Chairman. I'll give her a call.
Okay, so I'll circle back to tab number 12. We're gonna move on to tab number 13, approval of lease agreement for storage space needed for the Board of Elections in the annual amount of $8,800 to be funded through grants for the first year, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Director Kidd, Milton Kidd, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. Rick, if I can get the slide presentation, please.
Yes, one moment.
I guess I'll start with this while the slide presentation is coming up. Currently, with the addition of 2020 election season, the state of Georgia did transition to a new election system. Part of that new election system has additional components of which we have to ship to precincts. We also still have to comply with COVID mitigation strategies. So there is equipment that we maintain and storage that's associated with that. Currently, the department has 3 storage units that we rent from a local vendor. Okay. I'll go back to slides. Okay, these are pictures of the current storage units. We store items that do not require a highest level of security in these storage units, such as tables, chairs, signage, cartons, our mail, things that we could move our mail in and things like that, things that do not require our highest level of scrutiny. Currently, we pay $159 a month for 3 units a piece. We were needing to add 2 additional units to house precinct changes that we're going to have to make, to including adding more tables, chairs, signage, and things like that. So we sought 2 additional units at the current storage facility. And now, because of what is currently going on, the market rate for these new units has gone up from $159 a unit to $359 a unit. Because of this, my board and myself decided to look for, next slide please, alternative options to be able to store our equipment. Next slide please. Okay. This is just where it is currently stored in. The current storage unit, if we were out by the 27th of this month, we would get a full refund for next year. We paid for the storage units out of grant funds for 2 years. So essentially, because we were out by the 27th, we would get that money back from next year's proceeds, and we would like to reallocate those funds. Next slide, please. This is the proposed lease agreement. Currently, the previous storage units were 10 by 15 storage units. The new proposed lease agreement would give us 1,600 square feet for $740 a month. Based off of the numbers presented for the previous unit, we were looking at 1,100 a month if we continue with the storage unit option. Some of next slide, please. Some of the things that we were looking at with this new lease agreement, it would give us more space with the storage unit. Your things are stacked into a storage unit, and you're unable to access your inventory readily without pulling everything out. This would change that at a price point that is currently lower than what we would be paying if we continue with the storage unit option. This is a local vendor in Douglas County, a small mom and pop that has warehouse space available at different locations. The location we chose is $740 a month. Like I said, that coincides with the $1180, I believe, what it would have been with the storage units. This is completely grant funded with no budgetary impacts in the current year to be budgeted for future years. Last slide, please. That's it. I'll take questions at this time.
Any questions from the board? Okay, no questions. All right, we're gonna move on to tab number 4.
Madam Chair, we're going to review the agreement today just to make sure it complies with the legal provisions regarding multi-year obligations on the part of the county. There's some legal restrictions there. We're going to make sure that it complies with that, and I'll coordinate directly with Mr. Kidd and come up with the appropriate language to make sure we comply.
It should already be included in the lease. We have transferred the current lease agreement to Ms. Jennifer for a contractual review prior to this meeting as well.
Okay, we'll take a look at that before tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Attorney Coleman, for bringing us up to speed and giving the board an idea of what you're planning to do for tomorrow. So thank you. We're going to move on to tab number 14, acceptance of funds from the city of Douglasville and the city of Villa Rica in the total amount of $57,784 for conducting the November 2nd, 2021 municipal election and to amend those funds into the current year's budget. Director Kidd, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. These are the funds that were billed to the 2 municipalities, the city of Douglasville and the city of Villa Rica, for their November 2nd municipal general election. These are municipal elections, so they are responsible for reimbursing the cost of those elections to the county.
Thank you. Any questions for Director Kidd? All right. Thank you for the update. with the kid. Clerk, did Janissa Miller did you have an opportunity to reach Janissa Miller?
She did have to leave the office, but Felicia is trying to contact her now, so I will let you know as soon as I hear something.
Okay. Thank you. Being that's the case, we're going to move to tab number 15. Approval of resolution of support of the county's application for federal funding for transportation projects in connection with the Atlanta Regional Commission's FY 2022 call for projects committing to a required 20% local match, which is $4,296,101, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Director Valentin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This you might recall, and Rick, if you could pull up that one slide for this item, you might recall this item.
Just ask everyone to mute your mics. Ask everyone to mute your mics. Thank
you. Okay. While Rick is putting up that slide, this is the slide that we discussed at the Budget Retreat 2.0. Essentially, this is an opportunity for the county to leverage county funds to try and get federal funding applied to our TIP projects. TIP projects are Transportation Improvement Program through the Atlanta Regional Commission. And these are projects that have been underway for a while, some at various stages of development. But the Atlanta Regional Commission has opened an opportunity for the county to apply for competitive funds. And the overall total of the 4 projects that are currently within the TIP, the Atlanta Regional Commission's plan, would be the needs are within the fiscal 2023 to 2025 timeframe would be a total of $21.5 million overall, of which we would be seeking $17.2 million in federal funds with a local share of approximately $4.3 million. This requires a resolution be adopted and to be included with the application that we would be making to the Atlanta Regional Commission. It does require a minimum 20% local match, which again, the total of that, if all of the funding that we are seeking is allocated, would be $4.3 million. At that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
Any questions for Director Valentin? Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, this did come before the full Board of Commissioners. And so just for the record, Miguel, so the $4.3 million is, and so one, what are the projects that have been identified that are part of this? And 2, what is the source of funding or capital for the 4.3? Those are my 2 questions.
Yes, the 4 projects currently in the Transportation Improvement Program with the ARC are Chapel Hill and I-20 interchange improvements. This project started out as a study, diverging diamond interchange configuration. It has now evolved based on the results of that analysis to just intersection and improvements along a corridor to the north and to the south of Chapel Hill and I-20. The other project is the Lee Road widening phase 1, which goes essentially from I-20 to the north to Veterans Memorial. The other project would be the Lee Road extension, or part of the South Loop, South Douglas Loop, and that goes from just south of State Route 92, essentially extending Lee Road south of 92 to Bomar Road and following Bomar Road to Pope Road, and eventually another phase from Pope to Chapel Hill Road. And the last project is the Chattahoochee Hills Greenway Trail project. And this is a 11-mile long multi-use trail project that goes essentially from Boundary Waters Park to Sweetwater Creek State Park. and it follows along the Chattahoochee as much as possible, and then it joins, veers off away from the river, joins Riverside Parkway to Rock House Road, and it goes up Rock House Road to the park at the end of Rock House and what would be Buller Road. So those are the four projects. There is currently funding allocated to the projects from SPOS for the PE phase of three of the projects. We need additional PE funding for the Greenway Trail, which is part of the total that we will be seeking. But essentially, we are, based on the schedule of development of these projects, we would be applying for funding for those phases of the project that fall within the window of opportunity for this COFA project, which is from fiscal 2023 through 2025. And that covers mostly the right-of-way phases of all four projects. And it does include the construction phase of the Chapel Hill and I-20 interchange improvement project, because that is further along in development and would fall for construction within the 2025 timeframe.
Right, those are the projects. And what was the source of funding?
So the source of funding that's been discussed, what's available for funding is either a combination of SPOS funds and federal funds that we have for PE now. And for right-of-way and construction, we'd be seeking federal funds and an allocation from the capital fund based on that discussion at the budget retreat. That would be based on that discussion where the funding would come from for the local match.
Right, so it's the capital account associated with the general fund. Is that accurate, County Administrator? We just want to make sure. We just need to say it. That we're taking, or Rosalind, needed to be said, we're taking it out of that bucket of money. That's why we set aside, that's why we set this policy aside, so that we have moments like this. We have money automatically set aside. So when these moments come, we have capital to put against it to leverage. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
All right, just for the record. So we got the money, we're appropriately using it, we're leveraging it against a larger ask, and that's the way it should be done. And it's strategic and it's intentional. So I appreciate you bringing this forth, and again, the board will weigh in accordingly. Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chairman. Anybody else have any remarks? Board of Commissioners, any other remarks?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Geiger, you have the floor.
Yes, Director Valentine, just a quick question. Do we have other projects that's out there that's been pending? Do you have a list that you're working from?
There are projects that are in not the tip, not the more current list, but that are in what is referred to as the aspirations plan. There were projects such as the widening of Chapel Hill Road and things like that, but those projects have not started the process of developing the plans because of the funding consideration. So these are the only projects that are currently in the tip and are currently active.
Okay, but do you have a list that you have that you could share with the commissioners?
I don't have
of other projects that are out there that may be coming down the pipeline years from now.
Well, essentially, the comprehensive transportation plan has compiled the list of all of the projects that are going to be needed in the future, and these are the current ones. The total now has gone up to 150 projects. So it encompasses all of the ones that were in the previous CPP, along with the new ones that have been added. So yes, we certainly will be providing that report with the list of 150 projects that are going to be needed now and in the future.
Okay, and just to reiterate the funding sources, some of this is coming out of SPLOSH. Is that what you're saying?
The existing funding for the
The match funds, is what I'm saying.
well, let me just, there's two categories. For the funding that we are seeking from the Atlanta Regional Commission, would be the total 21.5,
Right.
17.2 in federal funds, and the 4.3 in local funds. Those funds would be coming, that would be the match. That would be coming from the capital set aside in the budget. Now, it is 4.3, and the discussion was that it would be prorated over 4 years. So there was a slide previously presented during Rosalind's budget presentation that included that set aside for this particular need. It included the first year of the down payment, if you will, towards the $4.3 million that would be needed overall for the local match. That's assuming that the entire amount is granted. If not, it would be something less than that.
So we don't have to pay the entire 4.2 or 4.3 up front.
That is correct.
Okay. Now you just said out of the capital, I assume you're talking about the 2022 budget. Is that right?
Yes, I was referencing the capital fund set aside from the 2022 budget.
Okay, but that wasn't enough. If I remember, I think it was 3 something. So is any of this coming out of SPLOSH too?
Not for this effort, no. The match requirement for this call for projects, for this application, would be coming from the capital set aside of the 2022 and future budgets. So what you saw on that slide from the budget presentation was that the first year for the 2022 budget, the first fourth of this capital, of this match requirement was captured in that budget. You would need to do the same in 2023, 24, and 25 to arrive at this 4.3 million total.
Okay, all right. So it doesn't matter that we won't have that much in the 2022 allocation for capital outlay, because only a portion of this 4.3 will come out of that.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I yield back.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Guida. Any other remarks? Okay, thank you so much, Director Valentini. We're going to move on to tab number 16, which is yours as well, Director Valentini. Approval of the FY 2022 LMIG SPLOST road resurfacing list for submittal to GDOT in connection with the county's application for FY 2022 the LMIG funding, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Director Valentini, you have
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This list has been provided to all the commissioners. It was developed based on the available budget for this effort. It includes, in this final version, a total of 63 roads, 24.2 miles approximately, and that will essentially take up the entire budget allocation from SPLOST for this project, plus the 1.3 million or so in LMIG funds that are provided by the GDOT. The application is, if it is approved by the board tomorrow, I will transmit that to the DOT to make application. It has to be done before the end of the year. We still have a little time, but again, the board, I would need the board to approve the submittal to GDOT to be able to capture the LMIG funding in 2022.
any questions from the board?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes. Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Yeah, again, thank you, I'm Chair. Again, the state only gives us what, $1.3 million a year
That's
to
correct.
maintain, right? We're having leverage, obviously, the SPLOST money, which is another $3 million. Thank you, citizens. But I'm driving home the point, the cost associated with maintaining the county's infrastructure, our own roads, the very things. It's expensive. And like I said, once every 40 years, that means your house is built, your road, and you may not even see it repaved again before you move on. Did y'all get the numbers? You get the timeline. And you can cut that to 20 years. Like I said, cut in half, but that means now you've got to double your investment. And you can't get there with $3 million a year. Again, 700 center miles. So, and it's a balancing act. And so we're just making people conscious of costs and priorities. And again, you only got $1 million. You got $1 million from the state out of a $100 million budget. 1%. But look what the priorities again one more time. Okay, guys. And that's why sometimes the citizens, they question, where's the money go? I don't get to see it. It's all internal. It's shiny obvious. Now they do appreciate the service delivery, but still, you got to do both. You got to do both. And so in this particular, I want to drop on this point. This year, and Miguel needs to confirm this. This year, I took a different approach. Because again, subdivisions are important, right? I mean, I get the main arteries, the main roads. We're always focused on the main roads, but people, I mean, it's what they call impact and curb appeal, and they focus by community, they pull down their street and stuff, and things are all dilapidated, it's cracked, potholes and stuff, and it's important. So this year's allocation, I emphasize that all mine will be, my 6 miles will go strictly into communities. So Brookmont, Mount Vernon, and Graythorne have been selected as being the communities that will have at least their portions of county portions only will get obviously resurfaced. Like we don't even get there. We do it every now and then, but I'm making a point. Because it's something that citizens told me that they want. Subdivision resurfacing. Like we get it, you have to be here 30, 40 years, they're already in that window. Right? And so it's one of those where, okay, well, I'm going to break range. I heard y'all. Right? So Miguel, is that in this list here that you got before us? Those communities?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make that point. That if you got to listen to your citizens, respond accordingly, and they get to set the priorities. And I can't speak to my peers, how they flow, what they do, I get it. But for District 2, this is important. This is one of the few areas where we actually get an equal distribution, an equal vote. Like, okay, well, it's what it is. We all are sovereign on how we want that to be done. But this will be the first time where it's totally dedicated to subdivisions. So I want to drive home that point, Madam Chair. Obviously, there's a bigger picture of needing to get to those subdivisions, those people's homes that have been here for a while. We get going forward, but we're just saying there's still some historical need to be taken care of. And there's not that many. I mean, I've got, 30 subdivisions in my district alone, give or take. I'm only talking about 3, but you guys get the point. I wanted to drive home that point, Madam Chair, that was the difference in my allocation for District 2. I yield the floor, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Vice Chairman Robinson. Any other comments for it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner Guida, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll segue off of what Commissioner Robinson said. I wish I could get to some of my subdivisions because one road, Post Road, takes my whole allocation, and that's where tractor trailers are going, and everybody on the western side has to get used to get to their houses. It's a cut through for the tractor trailers, and you can't wait 30 years to repave that, but it takes up the whole year's allocation, and a lot of my subdivisions kind of go to the wayside. Speaking of subdivisions, Miguel, I sent you a question from a citizen in the subdivision is on the list to be paved in 2022. all except one road in there. And why would you not include the one road?
Yes, Commissioner, and I did respond to your email.
I'm sorry, I hadn't seen it. So.
Gotcha. That's fine. But essentially, it's a funding issue. There are needs all over your district, and we only had approximately 6 miles of roads to allocate, and so we got as many as we could. There's always a possibility of, if you wanted to include that road within that subdivision, that we could remove a road that's on the list from a different subdivision, but that's the predicament that we're in. We got limited funds and plenty of roads that we could select from, but again, the budget is what dictates whether we include all of the roads in the subdivision or just some of them.
Well, it just seems like when you're allocating that you would do the whole subdivision, because now he brought out the fact, well, if you come back the next year to do that road that was left off this year, because it's in the back of the subdivision, that you might tear up with all the equipment, some of the paving you did in 2022. So what do you say to that?
Well, it's asked a valid point, but hopefully the road will not tear up just because of the construction, but it is desirable to have the roads towards the back of the subdivision done first if possible. So if that is the case, and you wanted to have that road done, perhaps we can leave the spine road off and then do that next year. We could do that.
But there were 2 phases of this subdivision, was it not? One part done earlier than the other.
I looked at the entire subdivision as a whole, Commissioner, and most of those roads are in need of repaving. But again, it's a matter of whether you can trade off some other road, because we do have that limitation of the funding as well.
Well, when we are sent the list, you've got roads and the subdivisions, and we don't necessarily go and, excuse me, I caught Anita's frog, I guess. But we don't necessarily get the map out and make sure all the roads are being done. So we leave that up to you. We don't micromanage your office, but I just wondered why you would leave off a road at the back of the subdivision.
And I appreciate
in better shape. Was it in better shape than the other?
Not really. It was one that it's a road that receives the least volume of traffic, so presumably the least amount of damage over time. But all of the roads in the subdivision are approximately equal need of resurfacing. Yeah, to the point that you bring up about, well, maybe do the road in the back of the subdivision first. We can do that. We can just leave the road that leads there all the way to the back off, trade it for that one, and then that way, when we go in next year, we would avoid any potential issue with.
But this is your expertise. I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but it was a valid question from a citizen that lives in the subdivision. And I wanted him to hear your explanation why you would do what you did. But, you and I talked about some of the cul-de-sacs that get very little traffic, leaving those off, and you said, no, we can't do that because we'll mess up, going in there and doing this cul-de-sac, we'll mess up the spine road. So I'm getting kind of conflict answers here. So, but anyway, you make the decision. You know the roads because we have somebody grading these roads, do we not?
We do.
Okay, we pay them money to grade them. So if the back road was just as bad as the rest of it, just seems like this wasn't done in a proper manner. But anyway, that's my opinion. But you answered I assume you answered the taxpayer, the citizen.
I answer your question from the previous email, yes.
Okay, this morning, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, I haven't seen it, so I will pass it along to him. But he does have a point there. So with that, I yield back.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bagger. Any other questions? Vice Chairman Robinson, you have?
Yeah, I mean, good insight, and I do get Commissioner Divers' point about length of road, Riverside. When we took over from the city doing the SDS, remember that was 5 miles. Right? It took 75% of my budget. I get it, right? And it's such a need. I mean, we have so much need, but yes, you only have so much allocation. And I'm listening to this the conversation. It's like, okay, so what would I do? Do I need to bring up something during our transportation committee meeting? Because again, Miguel says, well, we got limited dollars. It just makes sense that you would finish it. It's like, okay, but I don't have any more money. We get to make, but okay, but we could put a provision in there, and I can take this up and says, okay, well, you can take some money out of the capital. And so there's a policy thing that we can do in here, but Miguel still is limited by dollars. It doesn't matter what the need is. He can't spend what he doesn't have. He cannot spend what he doesn't have. And that's the reality that sometimes you can't get it all. So you have to like cut some rows out. When you get to my subdivision, one I really wanted was too big. They had to go down to number 2, number 3, and number 4. You can only work with what you got. And so so maybe we can work something out. That's a one-off. I'll take that up in our, put that on the list. Then how do we deal with this? But again, there's a bigger need. There's a bigger, like, yeah, guys, we need those slots are important as a funding mechanism. But here's the thing, my point is, Miguel, so one more time, we're outsourcing both slots and this list. Is that accurate? We're outside. It's not going to be done by in-house. This is going to be done by professional contractors. Is that accurate?
That is correct. It's going to be done all in one contract.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. I don't want to be upset with my staff when something goes wrong. I want to be able to hold somebody accountable for, the swirly lines and stuff. So, okay, that's all I needed. Madam Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I follow up with something that was just said?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Miguel, we bought equipment so we could do subdivisions ourselves. Why are we not doing it?
We have the ability to do some subdivisions, but sometimes whether it be because of the time when we start the process or weather related, we don't get to complete all the roads. And my understanding, what I've gathered is that the desire is to have one entity responsible for all of the work so we can lean on them for any resolution of any issue.
But if we cut out the middleman, it would not cost as much. That was the argument when we were talked into buying, the paving equipment. So do we still have the paving equipment, and is it sitting out somewhere?
Yes, we do have the paving equipment. We have the capability to pave. And Commissioner, even though we have this list, we at times would have the need to go and actually pave a section of a road that is not on the list as a maintenance component. So the equipment is not going to be abandoned necessarily.
I understand that, but the selling point was that we could do our own subdivisions, and we thought it was a great idea. This is the first time I've heard that we're no longer doing the subdivisions in-house.
That is, well, this year, actually, the current year, we did a hybrid. We did a contract for the contractor would come in and do milling and patching of some of the roads, and then we would pave some of the roads with in-house staff using that equipment. A and some of the roads, the longer roads, collector roads and the like, were done entirely by the contractor. So essentially it was a hybrid of in-house and contracted. But based on the way that process proceeded this year and the outcome, some consideration for perhaps the quality of some of the paving not being as good as it could be, that the sentiment is to outsource all so that we have one responsible party to be able to lean on. But we certainly do have capability to do some in-house paving.
Okay, I don't remember this coming before the board, but anyway, I guess that came from a recommendation from somebody.
Yeah, there's discussion of the transportation committee.
But did we vote on doing away with in-house paving?
I don't know that the board would have voted on it. You would need to vote on doing it that way when the contract comes before the board, when it's bid out and it comes before you.
Okay, I just feel like this should have been an issue that was discussed because it's costing more money. And even though we have splosh money to do this, and we're using our splosh money to do our local maintenance match. So it just seems like we would have, as a board, have decided that because we put a lot of money in that equipment that you have to pave the subdivisions. And that would have saved a lot of money. It would have maybe allowed us 7 miles rather than 6 miles, whatever, because of the cost savings. So with that, I yield back.
Thank you so much,
Chair.
Commissioner Data. Okay, Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
No, yeah, I appreciate this. Good conversation. We have committee meetings. And topics come up. And my peers feed me their experience. And Miguel, you took the long route, but it really came down to quality. Ain't nothing worse. It's like me cutting my own hair. Like that probably is not a good idea. Yeah, it'll save me some money, $50 a week, but I get it. Ain't nothing like pissing off some taxpayers. You don't get that road right in front of their house. It was about the standard of delivery. Right? So this is to the administration. Like, no, I think I'm guy. We were all in on that, but no. And then you got to go back and fix it. No. So in other words, what do you do? I mean, if you want it's a hybrid model. You want the in-house go and research people in the community. I mean, nobody prohibited that. But we're very clear, those who had that experience, staff, y'all are not in this business. Yeah, do some patching. Do what you can. But no, we want a standard. And you pay for the standard. You pay for the experience. Don't want somebody just got to slap some asphalt down, like, we got to just keep moving, we got to go over here, we're not in that business. That's not what we do. I mean, it was ideal. I get it. We'll look at a couple of communities. Let your citizens go take a look at those. So one of those is like, well, no, let's just outsource this and keep it. That's it. My point was, my opening comment, like, no, you don't want to be mad at staff. You want to hold somebody who's vulnerable that you're like, okay, you know this is unacceptable. No, it got real. So you didn't have to. What is it to vote on? Now, if you got the comments when it comes up to a point, comes up, there was no recommendation for anything. We just said, I had the comment right here, like, look, make sure you outsource this unless y'all going to deliver to the standard. You don't want the wrath of the commissioners nor of the public because you couldn't deliver based on something where we got this, we can cut our hair ourselves. Like, no, you can't. Not to the standard that they're expecting. It's a beautiful thought. Mess up somebody's subdivision. Mess up somebody's front of their house. You're talking about incomplete cul-de-sac. I mean, the very thing you talk about is the very thing we're talking about we just went through. They got pictures. It was a mess. We're saying, no, let's go. Let's cut the backyard. We can't cut the front yard. No. We got a standard. So while I appreciate it, there's nothing underhanded, undermine it, or like some type of power play. Like, no, let them taxpayer weigh in and say, let us override those communities that were impacted. They had to go and fix. It was real. And I was like, woo. Right now, I get it that we gave them the equipment, it was idea, but we don't put the training in. We went through a pandemic. We went through a lot of things. We don't put the money in. We lost candidates. We don't have the capacity. No, you don't. Not to the standard to be able to do the match somebody who's actually got a real contract that's bondable, that we can hold them accountable. So the very thing is when they mess up, now you got to go back and expend more resources. So now it's costing you more because it wasn't done to the level of the standard that it needs to be. Commercial grade. It's like investment grade versus junk bonds. Like, oh, I want investment grade. I want investment grade resurfacing. I don't want no junk bonds. I don't want that just backyard. Now, don't get me wrong. Staff is good at one-offs. They're great at one-offs. But we're talking about real long roads, real subdivisions. That's not the business that we're in. And if there are, then you need to really put some money and commit to that. But right now, we're not doing that. But I wanted to make sure we address that so that it was left on the table. Get to the truth of that matter. It's like, no, that's not how that went down. But you got some experiences in different areas that you got commissioned. Like, no, they had a different experience set. So I think that was important to say here. But again, staff is they have to step up at a level that would be matched this commercial. But again, it's no policy that's put forth, nothing that overrode anything, but it's about the evidence of the work. It's the evidence of the work. Inspect the fruit. To your point, when we get out and look at it, go out there and look at them roads. Now again, I get you don't micromanage the staff, but you do get to inspect what happens to your citizens. Yeah, you shouldn't micromanage them, but the citizens gonna give you feedback about, okay, so what's the executive branch doing? That's our job, is to advocate, like, okay, guys, y'all gotta tighten this up. So, I'm with you, Mr. Goddard, in the sense that, yeah, that was ideal. Yes, we did vote for that. But they can't make, and at the level we're really talking about cranking this up, staff can't do that. They can't scale to the level we need. Look, guys, you can put money into this. You got this contract out there. Let that go. Let them professionals do this, and let them stay to the one-off things that they really need to clean up a parking lot, or a cul-de-sac maybe, or some potholes. But don't put them on the main grid to keep up with this industrial strength volume. We're talking about $700 million worth of all these roads. You're talking about cranking this thing up. You're talking about me going from 300 to 330 subdivisions. They can't. They can't handle that volume. I think respectfully, this is worth the conversation. We don't have to belabor it now, but it was one of those like, no. I don't want to put them in their place. It's not that it's bad. It's not evil. It's not. It's like it's just the capacity. It's like they're only for special ops one-off, but not to get into the main grain of getting in that business. Because right now it hasn't proven to be fulfilling what we expected. So. All right, Madam Chair, I just want to share my comments with that and let it go for. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Robinson. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're going to move on to, we're going to pivot back to tab number 12. Thank you so much, Director Valentine. We're going to pivot back to tab number 12, authorization to acquire Matterhorn software service Icon on online dispute resolution, ODR agreement, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. It's my understanding that Janissa Miller is on the line. Janissa?
Hey, sorry, I got added to the meeting late and I was driving, so I was not able to be here. So Matterhorn is a sister company of Icon, which is our case management system. So they'll work perfectly well together. This is where citizens can electronically request an alternative resolution to their ticket, as opposed to having to come to court. So this will help in multiple ways, as you can imagine. Less people in the courthouse, less people having to take time off work, and then just simpler resolutions to their cases. The solicitors will have access to it. The clerks will have access to it, to where a defendant who gets a ticket and wants to talk to someone about it would simply go on. I don't think it's an app. I think it's a website, and make their request. The solicitors can reply. We can see it. We then pull the ticket, make the adjustments accordingly, and the person can pay without ever having to step foot in the courthouse or calling us. We get about 200 to 300 calls a day, so this will help us greatly. The money is for the setup, and I believe it's $6,000 split into two parts of $3,000 each. The first part will be us setting it up how we want it. The solicitors and the clerk's office will work together on that. And then the final part is actually getting the network going. And then from there should be no additional cost to the county. The defendants who use it will pay, just like they pay the processing fee to pay their tickets online. They'll pay a processing fee to do that. And then the $6,000 that we're requesting would come from the State Court Technology Fund, which Judge Barker has already tentatively approved. Basically, if you guys are on board with it, then he would allow that to be taken from the Technology Fund. Exactly what it's for. It's for new technology like this. So I think that's the bare bones of it. Feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll. I'm not the salesman, but I have spoken with several people, so I kind of know a little bit about it. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Janessa. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Janessa regarding the system? Okay. Thank you so much. Right. And look forward to the innovation. All right, Board of Commissioners, we're going to move on to tab number 17. Tab number 17 is authorization for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to renew a 5-year agreement December 21st through December 2025 with Axon Enterprises for tasers in the amount of $36,400 for the first year license, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending legal review. Major Holmes, are you on the line? Do we have anyone on the line from the Sheriff Department clerk?
Yes, ma'am. I believe Mr. Pounds is on the line.
Okay. Is it Lieutenant Colonel Pounds? You may be muted. Okay. I'll come back to this item. I have two more. So Lisa, if you could, clerk, see if you could get one, either reach Major Holmes or either Lieutenant Colonel Pounds for me. Okay.
Madam Chair, similar to the earlier item, we're going to work with the Sheriff's Department to make sure that language is included, not to run afoul of the multi-year contracting prohibition under the state law. So I want to make sure you're aware that we intend to make that edit.
Okay, so you will be making that edit, and okay, so that, and then this will come before the board tomorrow. Attorney Coleman, are you aware?
I think so. I think we can get this done before tomorrow pretty easily.
Okay, and Lisa, if you.
But I have not talked to the sheriff. I have not talked to the sheriff's office yet, so that's something we need to do. So
okay,
we'll do that today. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Attorney Coleman. And Lisa, if you could, our clerk, if you could continue to pursue to see if you could reach either Major Holmes or Lieutenant Colonel Pounds.
Yes, ma'am. All
right, we're going to move on board to tab number 8, authorization to amend Fund 540, Solid Waste Disposal 2021 budget in the amount of $220,000. Rosalind Miller, our interim finance director, you have the floor.
Yes, this is a totally separate fund than your general fund. It receives revenue about $2.8 million of revenue. The department is requesting to increase their budget by $220,000. Due to the pandemic, there was a lot of people coming to throw away items. So it was an increase of activity. And so with that increase, it increased for cost for transfer and disposal of the items. And also it had increased for revenue. So we're anticipating the revenue to be over projection about the same amount, about 250,000. So we feel that it'll be a net effect by raising their budget by 220, and revenue will cover that expenditure. And he is the director if I missed anything.
Director Coward, would you like to add? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rosalind. Yeah, what she put out was correct, and I just want to say, we budgeted and for the last 3-4 years have gone back and looked at the history of what we budgeted, what we asked for, and what we adopted, and then what was actually expensed. And this is, we budgeted for this year at $789,679, and then it was cut. We actually received $596,609. So the difference, and we're projected to expend the 826. So really, the difference that we are short this year, and we've never been short like this before, is because that was cut out of the budget, and that's never happened before either. So I'm just asking, we need this money that was taken out to get put back in so we can continue to move forward. Our projections are on point, and I can go back and look at the history for the last 5 years and show you how they increased each year, and we're increasing with revenues as well. So that's all I have. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer. It's pretty cut and dry when it looked at the actual numbers it was cut, and that's why we need it. We need it back. I'm sorry.
We just want it restored. Okay, sounds pretty self-explanatory. Any questions from the board regarding this request?
No, Madam Chair. Matt?
Yes, you have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, and again, like I said, put the money back. This is something that we gave authority to the county administrator to determine within the areas of her responsibility who gets what put back. This is an area, obviously, I've been following with the transfer station, et cetera. I knew that we need to sort of not leave it over in the corner. We need to deal with it. It's self-sufficient. It carries its own revenue, so I have no problem restoring it. So I'm in support of it without justification. Okay. That's it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank
confirm
you.
the point. I give this.
Bring it down and make it fit.
Okay. Any other remarks from the board? If not, we'll move on. Thank you so much, Director Howard, and thank you so much, Director Miller. We're going to move on. Board of Commissioners, we have tab number 19. There's authorization to utilize 75 previously purchased incentive cards for a vaccination drive sponsored by Commissioner Mitchell to be held on December 10th, 2021. Director Tiffany Stewart-Stanley, I believe you will be presenting this item.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Jones, Board of Commissioners. So this is related to the 300 vaccination incentive cards that were approved by the Board of Commissioners back in September of this year. We have been fortunate enough to give out roughly about 110 of those to our citizens from the drives from September Saturday, as well as with help from our Elections Director Milton Kidd, who also had a drive. And so today, we're asking for approval for 75 of those previously purchased cards to be used for a drive sponsored by our own Commissioner Mitchell to encourage our citizens to get vaccinated, to receive the vaccination in order to help with the fight against COVID-19. This drive will be Saturday, December 11th at the Willie Watkins Funeral Home located at 8312 Dallas Highway, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134. The drive will be from 10 to 12, and it will be on a first come, first served basis. So we're just asking for approval to use the cards for that drive. Thank you.
Assistant County Administrator, is it December 10th or December 11th?
It's December 11th. It's on
Okay. So it's listed wrong on the agenda. We need to make a correction for tomorrow. Okay. Any questions, board, regarding this initiative? Sounds like a good gesture. Promoting vaccines. Thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell, for continuing to push the agenda and should I say the movement of receiving our citizens receiving vaccines. That's very important. Right now, our numbers are looking good, and I appreciate that. So, good stuff. Any questions for Commissioner Mitchell or Mr. Stanley? If none, we're going to move on. Clerk Watson, did Lieutenant Colonel Pounds or Major
Yes, ma'am.
Holmes come on the line?
Yes, ma'am. Lieutenant Colonel Pounds is on the line.
All right. How you doing today, Lieutenant Colonel Pounds?
I'm doing well, and I do apologize for my microphone not working.
Oh, no problem. You could hear me, but I couldn't hear you. All right, I'm going to read this tab again and allow you to just express yourself to the Board of Commissioners. And it is tab number 17, authorization for the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to renew a 5-year agreement, which is December 2021 through December 2025, with Axon Enterprises for tasers in the amount of $36,400 in the first year license, and authorize the chairman to sign all related documents pending final legal review. You have the floor, Lieutenant Colonel Pounds.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon. Right now, we have currently 180 tasers that are out of warranty or getting ready to be out of warranty, and so we're just asking the board to approve this new 5-year agreement with Axon, the tasers, and with this, it comes to getting 100 new tasers, and it's the most recent technology that we can have. They're actually more effective and have a smart technology. And with that, we do have what we got called an evidence.com license. So that means whenever we dock these things, when we're charging them, they download the video or they download the information, and also it updates automatically every time it's docked. So the software is forever changing. Every time we dock it, it changes. But and the cartridges aren't included with this. But this is the expiration date for this is going to be the 20th of December, and we're just asking the board to approve this renewal for our tasers, another 5 years.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel. Any questions for our Lieutenant Colonel Pounds regarding the tasers?
Madam Chair?
Vice Chairman Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Obviously, along with support for our public safety, ensuring they have horses, they have shields, they have the tools that they need to get their job done to the point of effective matter. Lieutenant Colonel, all right, so these tasers, you mentioned, so roughly 180, 200 total. Is that for everybody? Does everybody have a taser? Go ahead.
Absolutely. No, sir, we don't. What this is going to do is going to give us 100 newer ones, and for the ones that are phasing out, everyone does not have one because everyone has to go through a certification before they get one. So this will mainly be for our patrol deputies and some different divisions within our agency, and some for the jail as well.
And so this is the more, I think I understand Techline enough. So this is the latest software, and it gives you a little bit more innovation. So you're saying that it downloads. So is this the type, now again, I don't know about what I see on TV, which is not telling me much, but is this the type of tool that will record what every time it's shot? What's being recorded? What comes back?
It's the information that's coming from the taser. Yes, sir. It's just telling them basically time and all the information in there. It doesn't show a video. It doesn't have video like.
Okay, all right, that's good. No, I'm just asking. I didn't know if that was one. This one even has video, but okay, it doesn't have video, but anything that happens with it, it's like the black box of that tool.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So 100 new ones, no problem. I have no problem. And obviously, you won't get any objections from me. Give you what you need. Just exists. And so this the license. What's the cost of this?
This one is going to be $36,400 for the first year license.
That's just for 100.
Yes, sir.
I'm good. I can do the math, Madam Chair. I'm at peace. I yield.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions, board? Okay, if there
Yes,
are no
Madam
other-
Chair, just one
Okay.
question.
Commissioner Mitchell, you have the floor.
So, will this item, I mean, is there a maintenance fee annually or something that goes along with this, or is it just you guys maintain them yourselves?
So if these go out, we'll try to download some, we'll try to deal with the latest software update again. These should update every time we dock them. But if for some reason that we can't do it when we dock it, we have to send it back to them and they'll replace it. And so they're responsible for that too. You get what I'm saying? So they'll have to replace the taser because it'll still be under our warranty.
Got it. So when the software updates, they're still responsible for how long though? It's the next 100 years or the next 2 years or indefinite? I mean, I'm just.
No, sir. From what I'm understanding, I talked with our training director this morning, and these things phase out right around roughly every 5 years. So by the time they're phasing out, if they, everything being equal, it'll be another time to renew another contract. So yes, sir, it should be around 5 years.
So that's why this is a potential 5-year renewal, which you're trying to get this time around, correct?
Yes, sir.
Got it. And I know our attorney is going to kind of look at that 5-year situation. That's why it'll have to go before them to make sure legally can we pull that off, because our policy now has changed to where those types of contracts are not null and void, but at least maybe of a challenge to try to circumvent our policy. But back to the maintenance stuff. So maintenance, I mean, so there's no upkeep in this other than in the docking station, and that's basically it.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. All righty. I'll yield at that point. I'll yield.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner Mitchell. Any other remarks, board? And then also, Lieutenant Colonel, Attorney Coleman will be working with you just to own the language for this contract, just to make sure we don't run afoul. So just want to make sure you could expect a call from our Attorney Coleman. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Well, are there any other remarks from the board? If not, I'll certainly tap into our county attorneys to see if we need to go into executive session. County attorney, do we need to go into executive session today?
Madam Chair, there's one piece of litigation that Mr. Bernard would like to discuss in executive session. So I would recommend that we go into the executive session to discuss that matter.
Okay, thank you. And,
Chairman, I'm sorry, we do have board appointments as well.
Okay, and board appointments. Oh. All right, with that being said, Board of Commissioners, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. When I call your district.
Madam Chair?
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to just acknowledge the fact that we're going into the motion was to go into exec session to discuss litigation and personnel, right?
Is that what you said? Yes.
That's correct.
Yes. Litigation and personnel.
And board appointments.
And board appointments. Yes. Okay,
That falls under personnel for purpose of discussion, but the actual appointment comes in a public meeting.
Yes.
I'm good. I just wanted to get over the record. We made a motion to go into executive session to discuss what? I just want to highlight those two things. Litigation personnel. You good, Madam Chair?
Okay. When I call you district, please respond accordingly. District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Chairman, yes. And District 3 is not here with us today. So we have a 4-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to go into executive session. Citizens of Douglas County, we will be gone momentarily to engage in our executive session. We appreciate your patience and understanding. Board of Commissioners, I would like if you take a break, a 5-minute break, and we'll see you, and we'll return at 12:55. It is now, well, we're returning at 12:56. It is now 12:51. All right, clerk, you have the floor to move us into the next room. executive session has ended and we are returning back to the main screen. Board of Commissioners, do you have any remarks or comments or any announcements for our citizens that you'd like to make known?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Vice Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the citizens of District 2, this coming Wednesday, which will be December 1st at 7 p.m., I am doing a State of the District, which is my annual State of the District, in which I'll cover this past year's, what we experienced, and obviously talk about this year's budget. I'd love to get your input as we come out of our public hearing tomorrow. So again, this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m., it will be online. It will not be in person. I will be beaming from or airing from our studio on the 3rd floor live. So I guess it will be through Facebook, and I guess it's out there and they're advertising it now. So I welcome all people. Anybody can attend this, but I am obviously sticking within my lane and addressing the issues and the topics that are important to District 2 and our annual State of the District. Madam Chair, I yield the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Vice Chairman Robinson. Any other remarks, Board Commissioners? Okay, if there are none, certainly we will. I just wanted to end by saying again, I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. And I know that we all did the right thing with regard to our 3 W's. We washed our hands repeatedly throughout the day. We watched our social distancing, and also we were wearing masks, our masks in confined spaces. In about 2 weeks, I will have Dr. Memark to come in and provide an update for all of us, including the Board of Commissioners and all the citizens of Douglas County, to see how well we've done. I just have the utmost confidence that we will receive a good report. And I ask us just to remain diligent with this virus. If there's nothing else to come before this Board of Commissioners, this meeting is adjourned, and have a great day. Thank you. This work session is adjourned. Look forward to seeing us tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. for our legislative meeting.
Thank you.
If there's nothing else to come before the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.